This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. And today's guest reminds me why I do this podcast. It's Lance Whalen, and we met because all he did was make a nice comment about one of my episodes. That's it. I thought, hey, let me check out this guy's music. And then I suggested we record an episode. Lance's story gets very difficult at times, and he hits me with some straight-up sorrow out of the blue. But everything he's had to endure has gone into some tremendous music. It's also gone into some music that he's trying to erase from the internet. But not everything is sad. In fact, Lance has a great DIY outlook on just about everything. He's recorded upwards of 40 songs using the podcast studio at his local library. That's brilliant. He also tells me how he had to search to find his own voice, writing and performing. Then Lance turns the tables on me and starts asking me some questions about the podcast and photography. Recently, Lance has changed his philosophy on music, how and when it should be released, and he definitely recognizes the shifts in the business and is quickly adapting. That's part of the beauty of being independent. Check out Lance's music on YouTube and streaming platforms. He may start putting stuff out on Bandcamp. You just never know. So give him a follow at Lance Whalen on Instagram. Go to lancewhalen.com for more links, including his Patreon page. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials. Our merch is located at performanceanx.threadless.com. And our fuel is coffee, which you can provide at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. Now here's Lance Whalen on Performance Anxiety, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Check it out.
This is Lance Whalen, and you're listening to Performance Anxiety. You can find me on Spotify and lancewhalen.com. Shit, I don't know. I'm terrible at this part.
See, this is the thing. Everybody's terrible at this part, so don't feel bad.
Give me a line reading.
This is Lance Whalen on Performance Anxiety. Keep an eye out for new singles coming out in 2024. And check me out on whatever your social media links are.
Okay. This is Lance Whalen. You're listening to Performance Anxiety. Keep an eye out for my new singles on Spotify and visit us at lancewhalen.com.
Perfect. You want to do one more? You're shaking your head, so I think you want to do one more.
No, that's fine. I don't know how to. This is the least interesting part. I don't know what to do.
This is sometimes my favorite part.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Lance. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to see if I can transfer this to my laptop, but if I can't, how's the audio?
Yeah, it's just audio. So, I mean, you can always try calling me from the laptop if that would make it work better for you.
Let me just try that.
Sure.
I'll call you right back.
Cool. Sounds good. Bye.
That didn't work, but that's okay. I'm kind of technology stupid. I'm sorry.
No worries at all. All right. So, being an avid listener, I'm positive that you look forward to midweek because of this podcast. I just feel it. So you know that I like to find out how things get started for each of my guests, how you get into music and how important it was early on. So let's start there. I mean, what was the first music that you can remember really making an impact on you?
Making an impact on me? Well, just probably like everybody else, something that your parents listens to catches your ear. So the first music I ever kind of got exposed to was probably Elvis. My parents were big fans. Lots of 50s and 60s stuff. And I think that was pretty good for a while. And I ended up getting really interested in, when I found my own music, I got interested in folk music and punk, garage, blues.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I really, some of the first music that I ever went out and bought on my own was John Lee Hooker, Reverend Gary Davis.
Oh my gosh.
Robert Johnson, of course. Although he was never my favorite. He was just the most well-known. But
yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, so
he's very influential to people who influenced me.
Right. Yeah, so that's kind of where I started.
Okay. So was music big in the house? Were your parents into it at all? Did they play any instruments or at all? How did you come about it?
No, they didn't. Well, actually, I take that back. So the way that I started playing, and I still feel terrible about this, it almost brings a tear to my eye.
Oh, no.
My dad, he got kind of a cheap acoustic guitar and started taking guitar lessons at the YMCA. And I would hear him upstairs practicing. It was usually like, remember him I could hear him upstairs, like trying to learn to play Freebird.
Oh, wow. That's kind of an ambitious one to start with on an acoustic.
Yeah. Well, he was just strumming the chords, but and that was really unfortunate. I think the two things that he was into when he started playing guitar is he really liked Leonard Skinner and Eric Clapton. So that's a rough place to start.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I want to start playing guitar. Can you teach me Relayer by Yes? Well, that may take a couple lessons.
Might, yeah. I started grabbing his guitar and messing with it. And I remember the first song I ever learned to play was I learned to pick out Green Sleeves.
Oh, cool.
For some reason, that was the first melody that ever kind of touched me in some strange way. It sounds really odd, but that's kind of what got me hooked. Then I started playing guitar, and I was terrible at it. And that's sort of how I became a songwriter, because guitar has always been really hard for me. So I learned I learned 3 or 4 chords, and it was really hard for me to learn those 3 or 4 chords. And I started writing songs right away.
Oh, wow.
And when I turned 16, I started driving myself to school to take my dad's guitar. And somebody stole my car with the guitar in it.
Oh.
And they sold the guitar. The police did recover the car. But with the insurance money, we ended up buying me an electric guitar. And I joined the jazz band in high school playing guitar. And my dad never played guitar again. Oh. And that makes me feel sad. But I guess, he could have bought himself another guitar.
Yeah. I mean, at some point they probably could have picked it back up. So I wouldn't worry too much about it at this point.
I know. It's weird. It's weird, the things that stick in your head forever.
For sure. Things that don't really mean as much or anything to the person that's connected to it. So when did you start playing with other people outside of school bands and stuff? And this is all happening in Kentucky still, right?
Yeah, that's right. I had my first band was a group of people I went to high school with. We were kind of a punk band. We were called The Reluctant, and we had a lot of fun. And God bless my parents, because we made ungodly amounts of noise at all hours, and they were totally cool about it.
Oh, so your parents were the parents that whose house all the kids went to play.
Yeah. We did all kinds of crazy stuff. We would, I don't want to get your video flagged, so I won't say all the crazy stuff that we did that my parents like semi all right with. But it was kind of a free space.
Wow.
I'm forever grateful for that, because we got to experiment with a lot of stuff. Most people just would be like, "Hey, you kids got to
knock it off, go home, get out of my garage." Do your parents know you're doing that? We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Before you skip over this ad, give me 1 minute. Like most podcasts, I pick sponsors carefully, and I use the products that advertise here. Pure Spectrum CBD is a product that has been really beneficial for me. They have a wide variety of great products that can be used on a daily or as needed basis. I've been using the tincture every day, and it's been wonderful for easing anxiety. And I absolutely love the isolate. I use it instead of acetaminophen or ibuprofen, and it's worked so well for the relief of aches and pains. They also have soaks, lotions, salves, gummies, and more, plus an entire line for fitness recovery. They even have products for your pets. See everything they offer at purespectrumcbd.com. And if you have questions, they're there to help. They helped me when I had no idea where to start. After you fill your cart, use code PerformanceANX for 15% off your purchase. Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD, Pure Spectrum CBD. So at some point, you made the decision to move to Nashville. How far from being in a garage band was it to get to Nashville? What kind of time frame are we looking at?
Let me think about this for a second. Maybe 5 or 6 years.
Okay, so actually not too long.
Not too long. After that band dissolved, I played bass in another band, a local band, really excellent band called Starboxer. But at that time, I began to work on my solo albums. And I think it was when that band started to break up, I thought, I'm going to have to do this solo because it's easy to make music. It's really hard to keep a band together.
I've heard that, yeah.
It's like, even just to practice, it's like herding cats. But to get everybody to get along for enough years to actually do something, that's the real feat.
So was there a lot of places to play where you were growing up? I mean, I'm not sure exactly where in Kentucky this was going on, but what was the scene like? Yeah,
it was good for a while. It was good. And I think that one of the things that I didn't like about it is it always seemed to be very near having what you would call a scene, or very near to being kind of cool. And then something would happen, a club would shut down, whatever. And then it was always on the verge of getting somewhere. And I think, unfortunately, that's probably why a lot of potentially cool places lose all their people to other cities, because they just don't have enough critical mass to keep things interesting. Right. To create a homegrown scene. Yeah. Which is a thing. It sounds odd to talk about, like, a scene. What is that? But it's one of those things, it when you see it. Yeah. Like Athens. Who would have thought Athens would, Right. And for that particular time, for a particular couple of decades there. Yeah. Seattle, places you would never imagine amazing bands would come out of it. So right. It can happen. And I know some of these places are a little larger, but it's especially in the South, I think. Yeah. Well, when I moved to Nashville, it didn't have anything to do with the scene, because Nashville was dead. Like, when I moved here, it was dead. I moved here because that's kind of a whole other story itself. I moved here because I found out I was in college. I found out I had a heart problem. Oh, really? Yeah. I went to the doctor and he was like, you need a pacemaker tomorrow. And I was like, I'm not doing that because I'm really young. I'm not going to run on batteries. And B, I'm not going to die here. I don't really want to go to college. So I dropped out and I moved to Nashville because there was a lot of industry here, but then it was mainly like top 40 country stuff. And the town was really run down and it was super cheap. Really? And that's like, and now it's incredibly expensive. It's one of the most expensive places to live in the South for sure. Yeah, I've heard. But one of the main reasons I moved here is I had a friend that was an intern at Warner Chapel, and I couch surfed. And every time I've been to Nashville to play, I had a great experience. Everybody was really nice. And it was just incredibly cheap and run down and sketchy. And I consider those the good old days. That's when it was a really interesting place. It was like a post-apocalyptic scape of broken dreams. Oh, wow. And I really, really loved that. Oh, my God. Wild packs of dogs would run the street. I'm not kidding. You get like literally. Yeah, I would be, because I lived in the bad part of town. And besides all the crackheads and police raids and stuff, you'd be standing outside at like 1 a.m. and 12 dogs would come running down the street. It'd be a German Shepherd, a Chihuahua, a bunch of mutts, and they had all they're just packs of animals.
Naturally, they're being led by the German Shepherd.
Right. It's an interesting place. And there was a lot of potential, but at that time, there really wasn't a scene here either. I was just, you want to get away from where you came from sometimes for some reason.
So how are you doing now, health-wise?
All right. Yeah.
Good. So, well, you're still here on the podcast, so we'll take that as a positive.
Yeah.
When you got to Nashville, is that when you started playing with the Blue Velvets? Or did that start before?
That was later.
Okay.
That was later. I did a solo thing for a long time. And
okay, so before we get into that, because this is the thing, doing my research, this was tough because not everything has dates attached to it when I'm looking things up for you. So it's not the easiest to figure out. So I'm trying to figure out. There's only 3 releases shown on Discogs, and only one of those has a date. And then I went to YouTube and I found something that isn't on Discogs at all. And then there's the Blue Velvets. So I'm just trying to figure this out together. So you're going to have to help me kind of piece this together.
Sure. I moved here. I put out a couple of solo records and toured a lot. And the Blue Velvets came about because I got married. And so I don't want to really talk about this period of my life very much.
Okay.
But it was valuable. I learned to play. It was really valuable learning to play as a 2-piece. But my wife at the time, she didn't want me to play solo. She sort of forbid me to play solo. It would make her very, very angry. So I kind of quit doing that. I mean, the Blue Velvets was still me, is playing my songs, but in a very specific context.
Okay.
And there's a couple. One of the reasons it's difficult too is because I, at some point not too long ago, completely expunged my first 2 albums from the internet.
Okay. So it was, which albums are those? Because I'll tell you what I've found, and you can kind of tell me where everything fits. So there's Ever Since Forever After. I found Civil Twilight. There's the Blue Velvets, which I found a few videos on YouTube. And then the EP Sweet Sugar Pie, and then a single with Andrew English. And that's, besides the couple links on, the Bandcamp stuff, the singles on YouTube and all, like the recent ones, Another Ghost, and the live album, that's what I got. Oh, yeah. Auld Lang Syne. Auld Lang Syne too.
Yeah, well, I put out a self-titled album not long ago, the most recent.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was an album before everything that you mentioned, but it's a long and convoluted path. But my most recent album is just a self-titled situation, so it's got a lot of good tracks on it. I've got a new album that I've actually had ready for a couple of years, and my management has wanted me to withhold it to try to do something special with it.
Okay.
I mean, special, get a record label or whatever, but I'm really tired of that. I'm going to go back to just popping tracks out all the time because I'm continually behind. I started a Patreon during one of the most difficult times in my life, and my mom got cancer, and I quit working and quit paying my bills. And I moved home back to Kentucky and took care of her full time for like a year and a half. And she couldn't walk or anything. So I was like 24/7 changing diapers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And my father during that time got Parkinson's disease, and then COVID happened. So I started a Patreon because I had like 40 plus songs that were sitting around unrecorded, and I had no money. And fortunately that worked out, and I was able to start releasing a song a month, and that's where the self-titled album came from. And I have another album created during that period, part of which I recorded. I didn't have a studio. I would go to the public library, had a studio for podcasts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I would go to their podcasting studio and work on these tracks, once a week.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and the new album, I can't remember if I sent you a link to it or not, but It's called Wrong Side of Heaven.
Yes.
Really happy about it. And I'm going to end up releasing that probably starting in the summer, probably one track at a time. And I got a couple singles coming before then. So always writing and recording.
I mean, I want to get to Wrong Side of Heaven soon because that, man, I don't want to give it away too much, but out of my, what I was able to listen to, that's my favorite group of songs that you have. I was listening to Ever Since Forever After, and I liked it.
I tried to get that was one of the ones I tried to get off the internet. For some reason, it didn't get all the way off.
Well, that's tough, man. You got 19 songs on that thing.
Album, yeah.
So there's 19 songs on Ever Since Forever After. That's hard to get rid of completely, I would imagine.
I think that's part of the problem. And the hilarious thing is that I think it was 24 songs, and I got, like, a lot of times when I'm having trouble making decisions, I get a council of people together that I trust. You know, it can be fans and friends and colleagues. And I asked them. So part of the deal with that was I think maybe it was 26. I got 26 songs. I got to get rid of some of them. We've got to take a vote, you know.
It's a double album.
And that was another thing. I love recording in the studio, but it's so expensive. I recorded Ever Since Forever After mostly on a 4-track, which is why it sounds god awful.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
man,
that's why that sounds so terrible. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just bought a 4-track, and I was like, "All right, let's plug a thing in," and you know. Well,
the thing that I found really interesting was I went back and listened to that, and there's some really cool stuff on there, in my opinion. And I'm going to pull up the track listing so I can make sure I'm looking at the right thing here. Baby, Baby, right after that backwards song, that's crazy. And that's not fine to go to work. And that's not Baby, I've been thinking about what you said. Tossing and turning like a turbine, twisting up the sheets in my bed, and pondering those wicked lies, and how we sent our friends as spies. That's a wild juxtaposition. I actually kind of like that. But Without Hesitation is the highlight for me. That song, I really love that song. Sorry that I wasn't enough. Sorry that I wasn't as tough as you thought I was. What I've noticed is that album sounds a little more contemporary at times, like kind of like Jay Mascis and Sparkle Horse doing gospel at times. Man, that's cool, and that makes me feel really good. The thing that I find interesting about that album, and again, I'm trying to get rid of it from history, so it's weird that we're talking about it. People probably, but you know, those songs came from very, very personal, tender space, and I also didn't know what I was doing. And it was also, just like most of the things that I do, it's a coalition of the willing. Like I can't, like I've got to call people and be like, I need your help. I need you to do this or do that. Will you be involved? You know,
with that song is like, I need a backing vocal. Can I come over to your house with my 4-track and capture that? But one thing I found was that a lot of the people that I think are my biggest fans or my longest fans or the people that get me the most are people that really love that album, because while it's 99% flaws, the 1% in there that's good is very real. And, it's really hard to do that in a proper studio where you go in and you have these musicians and you're paying them and you're all going to arrive at 10 in the morning and have coffee and everybody's charted the song out and then they're playing it for the first time in the room and then you try to get it sound as perfect as you can. It's a completely different, that's the Nashville way.
Right.
It's a completely different experience to, be trying to cobble everything together on a 4-track that would, that's about yay big.
Yeah, that you bring into somebody's house. I can imagine that's less than ideal circumstances. But here's the one thing that I've noticed in listening to the music. With each release, you sound a little more comfortable in your voice. And in the latest work, to me, there is so much of like Mark Lanigan meets Beck, and you throw in like a little Eugene Robinson from Oxbow in there. That's what I get from the most recent stuff that I've heard. And that, to me, that kind of started with, or maybe I shouldn't say I started with, because I'm not exactly sure the release dates of some of these things, but Sweet Sugar Pie is when I really started to notice that change, that more of a comfort with your voice. It sounds more polished. You kind of sound like you've found your zone, and especially for me in the title track. That's my favorite off that EP.
Yeah, I don't mind saying goodbye. Just don't send me back to the world. Let me stay a while with my sweet sugar.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm pretty happy with. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for that. That's the whole process. I think the thing that's so embarrassing about having a couple of albums you try to get rid of off the internet is you have this great desire. You're really young. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't have any resources, and you just go for it.
Oh, yeah.
And you are finding your voice. And it takes enough of beating your head against the wall and going out and playing and then trying to get in touch with the industry that doesn't care about it to eventually you stop caring about it. And that's when you find your voice. It's because you've stopped caring what anybody thinks and you're just doing your thing.
You're doing it for you.
Yeah. And not to mention, like an extra decade of practice.
Well, yeah. But that's when the best stuff comes. When you have the experience and you're doing it for you. That's when it's the most true.
Yeah. And it's really important. It's really important, especially here. I'm not sure, in that, like if you live in Nashville, you kind of live in this bubble and it's everybody is a player or an artist. And so, all these people and you see everybody striving so hard and getting their heart broken. And then you see people becoming famous and then the 100 other people that didn't, that were their contemporaries that,
yeah.
We would play shows together and then somebody, makes it or whatever.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
It's really weird. After a while, you just kind of get desensitized to it. And I think that's one of the reasons that I really like it here is because initially I liked it because it felt like college. Like everybody's there, they're doing the same thing, they're learning, and everybody's better than you, which is really a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's odd. So you get to see all this just throngs of people trying to do the same thing. And if you judge your self-worth on how many fans you have or what other people think of it, you're lost. You're going to hurt inside, and yeah. I think that what being an artist to me means is that you do it because you do it because you're compelled to and you're inspired, and because you have to. Because I tell people, ask me about advice, I'm like, if you can do anything else, do that. If you can quit, for the love of God, quit. But if you can't help yourself, if it's an addiction of sorts, or you just love it so much you can't do without it, then lean into it.
Yeah, I wholeheartily agree. And I wish, I don't know, I guess like maybe I wish I had gotten that advice in college, or I don't know. Of course, because now I do a lot of, I went to college for photography. And so
cool.
I did that for 12, 15 years, something like that, until my wife and I had kids. And I actually kind of got burnt out, but I was doing more weddings and stuff that I didn't want to do, but I had to because I had a mortgage and I was living in Southeast Alabama, like one of the poorest areas of one of the poorest states of this country. So I wasn't making anything, and gigs were tough to get because everybody's down there. Everybody's a lot more, I don't want to say practical, but if it's like, why am I paying you to do something that I can just go buy a camera and do? Because it's going to look like you or your cousin just went out and bought a camera and did it. That's why. Sure. So if I had gotten that advice, maybe I would have veered off into what I love doing now, which is concert photography, music photography. So that's what I focus on. I have a day job, which pays the bills, but every chance I get, I'm at shows in DC or Virginia, Maryland, taking photos, usually of former podcast guests. But
that's awesome. Really.
So I love that advice, and I wish I had gotten it earlier.
Well, photography is a wonderful art, and all that matters is that you're back on it now. Yeah, and like you said, it is an addiction. Like if I go to a show and I'm not shooting it, I'm sitting there thinking about shooting it. And one of the worst parts is when you go and you shoot in a larger venue or a well-known artist, they'll have a limit on what you can shoot. Like you can only shoot the first 3 songs and then you got to stop. Or sometimes it's 2 songs. Like when I shot Placebo, they're like, you get 2 songs, the first 2 songs, and then you got to stop. When I shot Candlebox and Bush, you had 3 songs, Candlebox open, and then was Bush headlining. After the 3rd Bush song, you had to go check your camera in at Code Check to make sure you weren't shooting anything else. So I was just like, no idea. This is news to me. That's really interesting. Oh, it's crazy. But if you shoot in clubs, most of the time they don't care. And it depends on the artist. You know, I have shot some up and coming bands that are big in the indie scene. And they're like, you get the first 3 songs in the pit up front. After that, go shoot from the house. We don't care. Just don't be in front of the stage. So it kind of depends on the artist. But the bigger the artist, the more restrictive they are, because they don't want to see themselves sweaty. So, and I heard once somebody I know shot Janet Jackson show, and you had like 30 seconds. That's all you could get in the pit, shoot for 30 seconds, and then they would call you out and pull you back out. And that's insane. You don't get anything. It's pointless to go shoot those kind of shows. Do you feel like so a couple things. One thing I think of is the one thing that would be really cool about shooting sort of mid-level or unknown bands is you're there, and it's almost like, since you're documenting that moment, not only is the world seeing that through your artistic lens, but it's almost like that show only exists into the future because you were there shooting it. And I also wondered, do you feel like you found your voice as a photographer? I feel like my voice as a photographer is always kind of evolving. And I would imagine much like music, you know, it's what you want to say and what you want to put out is always a little bit different. And because I'll do my best to make, I don't want to say provocative image, but maybe a striking image, something that makes somebody stop and look. And because some of my favorite photos are ones that every time I look, there's something else in there. And that's what I strive to get, is to
make something that's a little unusual. So if you look at my Instagram page for my photos, not everything is just your standard rock pose or guy with the guitar. You know, some of them are like extreme close-ups. Some of them are super wide angles. Some of them are, so there's the rule of thirds. So you've cut the frame up into thirds and you try not to have the focus of the image right smack dab in the middle. You don't want that. So what I'll try to do, sometimes I'll try to push that to the extreme and get it like way, way far out on the edge, and then just have tons of negative space. But what I'll see sometimes is I'll see an image and I'm like, now that's what I'm trying to get. And then it'll make me kind of shift focus, or technology changes. Like, started off in the film world and now I'm pure digital. So it's so much different, but also lighting conditions are different every club, every venue you go to.
What a challenge that would be. Having been in that situation where dozens and dozens of times photographers are sending pictures to me of photos that they took. Yep. It made me think about all that, how difficult that is, especially with the lighting. And what made me ask about your voice as a photographer is the thing that really made me think about that as a concept had never crossed my mind until I met this guy. He's a friend of mine named Erie Vaughn. He played bass in Danzig. And I didn't really know that about him when I met him. And he did a lot of the famous photos of the Misfits stuff. He has a book. Wow. I think it's called Camera Obscura or something like Misery Obscura. Sorry, Erie, I don't remember the name of your book, but it's just cool. It's a really cool big book of photos he took of the Misfits.
Oh, awesome.
And he photographed, 5 or 6 shows of mine. And when he would send me the stuff, it really shocked me because they were weird. You look at them and you don't think, well, this is a great professional photo, but I could see a photo that he took and know that he took it without you telling me. And I was like, that is very strange and very cool. And another thing that I noticed is a lot of times in the photos that he takes, and this is just a testament to being a unique person as an artist, I just kind of noticed one of his, like when I would see photos of his, it was almost like the subjects were in focus, but they weren't the subjects. It's like the carpet, all the cords, all of the equipment. It was almost like, it's almost to me like the subject of his photos is the environment a lot of times.
Oh, wow. Oh, I love that.
Get this real sense of what it was like to actually be standing there. You know what I mean?
That's difficult to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't even know if he does it on purpose. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the stuff that I do as a musician is because I like to be like somebody else, but I fall short and I land in some other territory.
That's me with photography. I have my idols that I look up to and I constantly fall short, but I'm just falling short based on my own expectations. But it's also maybe the way I fall short is my voice. That's what makes my photos. Maybe. And so if you haven't checked out, when you check out Instagram, go to Mark X Shea, and that's those are my concert photos. So a little plug for myself there.
Yeah. Sorry, I know we're off topic a little bit here, but
that's fine.
One of my favorite photographers of music and musicians, I'm going to butcher his last name, Anton Corbin. I
think that's how you pronounce it. I know who you're talking about. Guy's amazing.
Yeah, he has a voice too.
Yeah, he does. But I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of my favorite photographers on. Scarlett Page. She's been photographing bands since the 90s and all. And Paul Natkin. He shot that famous photo of Ozzy and Randy Rhoads from the tribute album.
Cool.
That was him. That was a cool show because he was also telling me how little money he made from that photo. He said,
that's the thing. That's another reason why I tell people to, if you can quit, because if you're in art for money, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
If the money comes, it's beautiful. I make money sometimes, and I'm like, great.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't do it for free, just don't even bother.
That,
you know,
I don't get paid to do any of the concerts. I don't usually have to pay to get into them, but I also don't make any money from the pictures. So, you know, it's a win-lose. But
it's nice. I think if you stick with it, it's a nice bit of gravy. You know, I've kind of fortunately gotten to the point where I make more money than a lot of people I know playing music.
Yeah.
It's still, you know, you'd still be better off manager at McDonald's. But but it's hard to make $1 playing. You know, it's hard to make $1 with art. You know, and if you make one, if you spend $500 on materials and you paint a painting and sell it for $502, then you've done better than 99% of all people that ever painted a painting.
That's so true. Well, all right. So I want to ask a little bit about the new music. So Wrong Side of Heaven. So right now, it's to me, it's looking like an album, but you're saying you might just release one song at a time over the next several months.
Yeah, it'll become an album because I've been sitting it on for a while. It's been sent out to some labels. Nobody's really interested. I think, you know, the way the music business works now is the best way to get a label is to get to the point where you don't need one anymore.
True.
And, you know, which makes sense. You know, they want to see that you have a viable business model. And it does happen sometimes that a label will pick up somebody that they just really love and they have no good reason to. But it's odd. It's one of those, it's the artist business brain, because in the music business, we're always powwowing with our team about what to do about this, who to reach out to, what the strategy is. And I could do that, and that's fine, but it's a completely different hat. And then after a while, the artist in you is like, screw this, man. We need to just move past this and move on, because I'm like I said, I'm perpetually like 40 songs behind.
Yeah.
And every time I record new songs, I'm writing new songs, and I'm always at a deficit. And so it'll become, once all the songs come out individually, then it will become an album and be packaged as an album. But right now, I mean, honestly, when I do put out songs or put out an album, there's a few thousand people that are going to go check it out. Right.
Oh yeah.
On a practical level, fans, and there's no reason to wait on the gatekeepers to do it. That's how I feel about it. And
yeah, I mean, there aren't many gatekeepers anymore.
Yeah. Well, they're there to give access to money and promotion and to take a portion of your product.
Right.
You know, like, which is fine. And if the right person came along, that'd be lovely. But I don't think, for me, you know, it's, I've just always kind of been I've been a DIY spirit. So it's really bothersome to me to try to approach the business the way that your business professionals try to get you to approach the business, if you know what I mean.
I can,
right?
Yeah.
I'm more of the that's one interesting thing. So I want to open up this can of worms. I love your podcast, and it's a real pleasure to be here. And you've interviewed a lot of people that have been inspirational to me. And one of them is a long time ago, I watched a documentary about half Japanese.
Oh yeah,
and that resonated with me so much. Like the whole, like, you know, I'm sitting here and people are like, oh, we need to, you know, perception is everything. The music business is like smoke and mirrors, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Right? Perception is everything. We got to craft this thing, packages up. It's got to be just so. And I've like, since I was a kid and ever since I saw that documentary, I'm like, you know, but how about, what if I just like, somebody writes me a message and pays me $10, and I will just record a song for them on a cassette and mail it to them. You know, that's where that's where I like that, that ethos and stuff has always resonated with me. So I kind of find it a little hard to play ball.
I'm sensing that about you. The new album it sounds, I want to say, and I've seen this written about your music in general, but it seems to really make sense on this album, is noir Americana. Mm-hmm. And it seems like you've really kind of leaned into it in this album. This album is a little bit darker, maybe a lot bit darker than your previous stuff that I've heard, because you've mentioned there are a couple things out there that I don't know about. But from what I've heard, this one seems to really focus on the noir aspect. Was that on purpose, or was that just where you've been at, or are you picking these songs based on that? Like, because you said you have like 40 songs or so that you haven't done anything with. Are you grouping them together?
No, I think, when I started playing, I was inspired by some dark events. Most notably, I really think part of me finding my voice is when I was in college, I was engaged to a really cool woman who was murdered.
Oh my God.
Yeah. She was raped and murdered in South America. And that was a mindfuck. And things have just gotten darker from there. I think I probably started out a little dark and keep going in that direction. But, I think the most important thing is the wonderful thing about art in general, and especially music, I feel, is that you take all of this horrible chaos and emotions, and you're dealing with all that in what often seems like a completely meaningless universe, and you kind of put order to it and make something out of it. And I don't make music to be dark. I'm not trying to be dark. What it does is it lightens me,
Okay. So
it gets it ordered and out of your head. And if it touches somebody or helps somebody along the way, then that is what makes it all worth doing. And every artist I know is the same way. Every once in a while, you just feel like giving it up. And every time I feel like giving it up, I get an email from a stranger saying that this song or that song really helped them out. And then it gives me the fortitude to continue. But I don't attempt to be dark. What I attempt to do is to be a light into the world. And it's kind of a tall order. If you write anything less than your best song, then you've kind of failed at it. But you got to try. You got to fail. If you try, you fail. And if you try 10 more times, you might succeed. So
to me, you were most successful on Keep On Holding On.
Time to make your move. Ship's going down. So maybe we'll keep on holding. We'll keep on holding. Keep on holding on. Keep on holding.
Because that song somehow is both pessimistic and hopeful in the same song. The verses are so melancholy, but the chorus is just calling for hope and calling to keep holding on. And that's one of my favorites on the album. And it's a beautiful, perfect way to end the album.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. And it was a natural closer once it came together.
So I'll mention a few of my favorites because I do have some questions about them. Mm-hmm. And there really isn't a question about this one. I just wanted to tell you how amazing I think this song is. Another Ghost.
Keep a little kindness for yourself. The last thing this old world needs is another ghost.
That song is just, that hits me. But Strange Angel, is that a theremin on there? What's going on with that weird ghostly sound?
That is a That is a theremin, played by the talented Thea Triffid.
Lord, have mercy on my soul. I want a strange angel.
It's a theremin, yet it was a natural. That song, it sounds, oddly enough, I don't know how to explain this, but that song, it sounds like kind of the made up fantasy thing, but it's actually more like three chords in the truth. It's more literal than you would think. But one of the people that inspired it was a theremin player. So I think it was a natural, obvious. It was an obvious choice.
Okay.
Even though it seems like an oddball choice, it actually has to do with the song, not just like, this is weird.
Yeah. Here's an interesting noise.
Yeah.
The title track starts off the album, and it's really good, but man, when Something at Work started right after that, that's when your voice really makes an impact for me on the album. You've got that Mark Lanegan gruff baritone kind of sound, and it's highlights right on that song. So, the Wrong Side of Heaven is good, but then your voice just changes a little bit, gets a little more gruff on right in the beginning on that, and that's I'm just like, wow.
There's something at work here. There's something coming there. There's something at work here. There's something coming. It ain't good.
That is a melancholy, rough, kick-ass voice. And it's the same sound and same, like it's just the same sound. It's the same reason I love Mark Lanegan stuff. It's just the sound of that of your voice and the sound of his voice, so similar and touching. And that I love the transition between those two songs.
Thanks, man. I really enjoyed your interview with him.
Yeah.
It really sucks to have lost him, and that hurt. And when I was telling you, I was taking care of my mom for a while. He actually played in Nashville at a fairly small club, and I couldn't make it because of that. And you should always see the people. Yeah, I wish I hadn't come to him so late in life, because somebody told me, "Hey, you sound like Mark Lanegan." And I was like, "Who's that?" And they were like, "Well, you got to check it out." And I checked it out, and I was like, this guy is awesome.
Yeah.
I am legitimately upset that we don't get any more music from him.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's really tough because now we're doing the podcast. I know so many people who've worked with him, and he came on the podcast twice, and I can't say legitimately we were friends, we were acquaintances, but he was always open to getting an email from me or, chatting, and doing the podcast. He was always open to it. And it's a shame. And I miss him a lot. We just passed the anniversary of his passing last week. So so your music comes at a perfect time for me. Like you said, when you're feeling like you're ready to quit, you'll get that email from somebody out of the blue. And, when I'm missing Mark Lanegan, I immediately started listening to your music just around that time. And I'm like, this is what I need right now. So Dark Night is a beautiful song, but I'm telling you that angelic chorus that you've got in there, that is something special. That makes that lifts that whole song up. It's so amazing.
Dark night of the soul, keep on
else is working on the album with you? I mean, is it just you and some friends, or is who's in the chorus? Who's playing all the music?
Yeah, well, much like in my early days of recording things on a 4-track myself, it's a coalition of the willing. I recorded a lot of the album at the library and then some of it at home, and it was a long. I was taking care of my mom or during COVID, and I mopped up all of the other stuff after all that, the details. But I basically, most of the time I would record like the drums, guitar, vocals myself, then add some ideas, and then I would email it to people to put their part on. The choir on Dark Night is a Nashville artist I've known for almost the whole time that I've been here, named Samantha Harlow. She's an amazing singer, and is somebody that is very important to a lot of my music is John Simpson. He's a multi-instrumentalist, producer. He's mixed a lot of this record and made it sound really good. I mean, he's the reason it sounds good, because even though I record as much as I can and then email it to people to record, and then I just have to hand him this pile of shit.
Make this sound good.
It does sound good. And so John Simpson, he's a genius and sort of my musical soulmate. Cassidy Feasby plays bass on some of the album. I work with him sometimes. He plays bass for Dierks Bentley, so I don't get him as often as I used to.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's a world touring professional bass player, and so but I'm fortunate enough to get him his input and his skills on tracks when he's not traveling the world and pleasing stadiums and people.
Looking at photographers as they get their third track in and have to get out of the pit.
Yeah.
Yes. The song that really gets me, and I think is the most special on the album, though, is Don't Go Outside.
Your hair is a dreaded mess, just about to spread. I woke up facing an ashtray, trapped in your opium bed.
Oh wow, thank you. Well, I'm glad. A friend of mine told me, he loves the album. He listens to that song. I'm glad to hear that you like it, is where I'm going. He was, wow, man, that's the longest 3 minutes of music.
It's so cool. It's just creepy and lo-fi, and it's kind of like if you had like Jay Jail singing over like some weird test pattern. That's the kind of stuff that I absolutely love. It's a little off, like I was saying, the rule of thirds. You don't want your subject right in the middle of your frame. This song is an audio version of that. It's to the left or right of the center. It's
very uneven.
It's something very different about it, especially compared to the rest of the album. It stands out a bit, and that's my favorite on the album. And I can't wait for everybody else to give it a listen. So how often are you playing out live? And are you working these songs out live before you record them, or do you keep them kind of close to the vest before you play them live?
That used to be my old strategy. I used to go and test songs out in public, and that would tell me what was worth doing. Right. But all of these, they just kind of happened, and they were recorded in various solitary environments, and some of these songs nobody's ever heard. There is an acoustic version of Another Ghost, although that is out. That's on the self-titled album. But
I did see that on YouTube, yeah.
I just didn't have it. I hadn't had that in a band yet. So yeah, these songs were just kind of done and put out there. Nobody's heard them before, but I do prefer to test songs out in front of an audience if I can.
Okay.
Some months I play a lot of shows, and sometimes I don't. So
fair.
I used to tour a lot, and I like it in a weird sadomasochistic kind of way. I really get into it, but I'm also I don't think I love to play as much as other people. I actually kind of dread it.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah. I kind of it's like switching into another gear, and it's sort of a different form of art. But yeah, I don't love it. Not the least of which is that it causes anxiety.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, but I'm ready and willing to play whenever, wherever. I think I've taken an approach. I play a lot, but a lot of the things that I play, people ask me to play. I haven't been actively booking tours lately because I've been focusing on making records and trying to put this record out. And then hopefully a tour will go along with that. Another difficulty I have with that is that, while I've kind of developed a bit of a cult following, they're spread all over the world. So I could pack out a big venue if I had enough plane tickets to fly everybody to one city.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, no, it's cool though. It's cool though. I think there's something wonderful about not being for everybody.
Yeah, that's my theory on this podcast. It ain't for everybody.
Maybe not, but it's for me. I
appreciate that, man.
I've enjoyed. I'm forgetting, but I've mentioned a couple of ones that I've listened to. Isabel Campbell was an awesome one.
Yeah. Oh, she's so sweet.
Yeah, she is. She's so cool. She's somebody I'd like to meet someday.
Me too.
Yeah.
In person. I meet so many people, but it's 2D.
Right. Yeah. Totally. Am I just dreaming this up? Did you interview Ian Ottaway?
Yeah. Yeah,
I really like him. That was a cool interview.
Yeah, he was how I got to Mark Lanigan. Because I interviewed him, and then he got me in touch with Matt Boroff, who then got me in touch with Mark because it was coming up on my 100th episode and I wanted to do something special, somebody big for it. And I know that Ian and Matt had worked with Mark, and I was like, all right, I'm coming up on 100 episodes. I think Mark would be interested in, he's like, I'll reach out and I'll ask him. And he was up for it, and he said, shoot him my email, and Matt gave me his email, and then the rest is a short bit of history. Well,
I really enjoyed it. Is there any? Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So I apologize for the reverse interview here, but
no, it doesn't happen too often, so it's kind of interesting for me.
Who would since I'm a fan of your show, who would you like to interview that you haven't yet?
I'm working on a few. One is Nick McCabe, the guitarist for the Verve.
Cool.
And then there's a couple others. John Squire. Love John Squire's guitar work. The guy's incredible. I would love to interview Jimmy Page, but I would love to not talk about Led Zeppelin. I want to talk about the Firm on, or working with Roy Harper from like the 80s to now, because everybody knows all the Led Zeppelin stories. So
right, yeah, that would be cool.
And I doubt he would tell me something that I don't already know or somebody doesn't already know on my podcast. And right off the top of my head, the other one that is a kind of a unicorn is David Eugene Edwards. That dude is
16 horsepower, yeah.
16 horsepower, woven hand. He just put out a solo album called Hyacinth. It's amazing.
That dude's amazing. Every time I see a clip of him playing, I'm like, that's so fucking cool. I don't even know what to say about it. I just like. Oh.
The last time he toured in the U.S., he opened for the band Ohm. And it was a weird show. I mean, his drummer Orty just passed last year, I believe. And but he's actually going out on tour now. So, but it was just him and Orty, and it was Build This Woven Hand. And it was a lot of stuff, I believe, from the Silver Sash album, which had not been released at that time and then got pushed back because of COVID. So I took some photos, and I was supposed to write an article for the blog that I do the photos for usually. And I was just like, I don't know any of these songs. I just had to try to look some up and guess. And it's just crazy. But I spoke with him a little bit afterwards, and I told him I'd love to get him on the podcast. And he's like, oh, reach out to Kathy at Sargent House. So I reached out to Kathy at Sargent House, and she's like, yeah, he's not going to want to do that. I'm like, come on. He just told me to reach out to you to like, I don't know if he was just being nice, because I know he's real private, but he has done some pretty extended documentary interviews, particularly when he was a 16 horsepower. But one of the coolest things that happened with him was Halloween. I think it was 95 or 96. I don't remember exactly when, but I think their 16 horsepower's first full length had just come out. And they were on tour with another band I loved back then, Grantley Buffalo. They were opening up for Grantley Buffalo. And the show was at a theater in Philadelphia. I used to live in New Jersey. Philly was an hour one way. New York was like an hour the other direction. So it was perfect. And so they were playing at Theater of Living Arts, 16 horsepower opening for Grantley Buffalo. Somehow word got out that the venue had changed. Without the internet at that point, I don't even know how I found this out. But it was going from the Theater of Living Arts to the Pontiac Grill, which it's not a huge venue. It's kind of what it sounds like. It sounds like it's like a bar and grill kind of a thing, if I remember correctly. Because I'll explain why in a second. But I get to Philadelphia. Nobody else was going to go to the show with me. It's Halloween, Philadelphia. I'm all by myself. I get to the Pontiac Grill, which is only a block or so away from the Theater of Living Arts. And there's a big sign on the door saying the 16 horsepower and Grantley Buffalo show has been moved back to the Theater of Living Arts. But if you hold on to your ticket after the show, 16 horsepower is going to be playing another show here. Bring your tickets and you can get in for free. So in one night, I got to see 16 horsepower play 2 full sets at 2 different venues.
Wow. That's amazing.
On Halloween. And then I had to walk like a mile in the middle of the night in Philadelphia by myself to my car.
Oh.
So that was frightening.
Yeah.
But
right.
Those are the 4 off the top of my head. So I'm actually in contact with Nick McCabe from The Verve, and he's said we could do it sometime this year, but I don't know when. So the others I had, no idea. I've had Jimmy Page's girlfriend and his daughter on, but not him. And I'm not going to ask them if they can help me get him on. I'm not that kind of guy. I can't do that. So.
Yeah. I understand.
Somebody of that stature, it's just, I don't want to be that presumptuous. So what is the best way for people to find music from you, find out when you're going to be playing, keep an eye on the releases?
Okay. Lance Whalen on Spotify, at Lance Whalen on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, Lance Whalen, once again. And I'd appreciate it if you check me out, follow, click, and all that kind of stuff. All those things help out a little bit. But I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, and I've really enjoyed the album. It's the best stuff that I've heard of everything that I've heard. Because, like you said, there's a few things out there. Well, they're not out there anymore, so I haven't heard them. So this is your strongest work, in my opinion, that I've heard from you. So I cannot wait for this to get released and the music to get released and people to hear it. And maybe we can get, instead of everybody in the world flying to one location, maybe we can get you to tour different locations and still fill up places.
Yeah, I'm working on Europe right now.
Oh, awesome.
I seem to maybe do a little bit better there.
I found out that I'm doing pretty good before this whole thing, in the Ukraine, I did okay. Was it Bulgaria? Eastern Europe seems to like my podcast. So
good. And
then Norway was good. So I'm big in little places.
Well, you know, this isn't the only place in the world.
No, exactly. And like you said earlier, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the love of music and getting to know some awesome people like yourself, and hopefully maybe expose not just myself to some new music, but maybe a few other people to some new favorites. So here's hoping we can do that with you. And
thank you.
And we'll work out on getting you back on again, because I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I really do appreciate your time.
Same.
Dark roads inside the pines, hairpin curves outside the lines. I got two smokes to get me there. Winds and bells in my long black hair, singing